You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. Welcome. How are you today? This episode is inspired by several conversations that I've had lately and a new video series that I've created called Am I in an Abusive Relationship? As many of you know who have been listening to me for quite some time, this is one of the areas that I specialize in. And I'm pretty passionate about helping women, especially, gain a language, learn the language to describe some of these destructive behaviors that happen in relationships. There's destructive behaviors that happen when there's betrayal, the lying and the hiding and the deceiving to hide what the person in that relationship is doing, the behaviors that they're doing. Then we have destructive behaviors that are in addition to those other destructive behaviors coupled with betrayal. Then a lot of my clients who maybe didn't really pick up on a lot of those destructive behaviors or maybe experienced those in an overt way in their relationship, but once they decided to get divorced, then boom, now they have all of these post-separation abusive behaviors, destructive behaviors showing up. That can feel confusing as hell. And that can feel like, whoa, who even is this person? And that creates its own reality collapse in and of itself. But I want to talk just a little bit today about how to heal from some of those abusive patterns. This isn't going to be a super long episode. That doesn't mean that this doesn't take a super long time to heal from. So just because I'm not maybe covering all of the different spaces and nuances around this in no way indicates that I think this is something that should happen fast or quick at all. I just wanted to speak to it today because I don't think it gets near enough airtime in the conversations around divorce and what that actually looks like to heal from those abusive patterns post separation and on the other side of divorce. This isn't just leaving the marriage, it's not surviving the marriage, which so many of you have been doing. What does it look like to heal, to integrate a different pattern, a different behavior, a different way of showing up really in your life and in the world, in your body, into your nervous system, and in a way that you can relate to yourself and other people going forward that doesn't repeat some of those patterns. So today I want to speak to two groups today. Those of you who are still in the middle of it, actually going through divorce, maybe still feeling pulled back into some of those dynamics with your soon to be ex. And those of you who are on the other side, but wondering why it still feels like maybe you're not quite free yet. Both of those experiences are very real. Gosh, I've been there. I can really relate to that. And both, in whichever experience you can relate to, deserve to understand what's actually happening. More than anything in any of these episodes, I love to help you see where your power and empowerment lies. So the first thing I want to address and give a visual to, this is a visual I use a lot with clients because one of the questions I hear most often is, how do I know that I still even need healing from those patterns that you're talking about, Amie? How do I know that I'm still stuck there? Or how do I know that I might repeat those patterns? Such a good question. Because again, sometimes people think that when they leave the relationship or once that relationship is legally over, I would say a lot of you might find this will show up even as you're pulling away from the emotional divorce. The healing from these patterns don't often follow quickly. When it doesn't, that's where I see a lot of the confusion show up, the confusion that gets turned against the self. And it shows up with what's wrong with me. Maybe I really wasn't enough. Maybe I was the problem. Why can't I have a healthy relationship? It just gets turned against ourselves. What I think is really important to know first and foremost is that your nervous system doesn't know that the relationship is ended oftentimes. That is that is what I generally see when I have clients show up asking this question. After a few different questions that I'm asking, hearing how they're responding different things, just what I can sense energetically, their nervous system is still in that old relationship. The body, as you all know the phrase very well, has kept the score. It's kept a record of what's happened. It's still operating on and around those old rules of the relationship and the role that you had in it. All of those rules and roles that you learned and adjusted to in order to stay safe inside that destructive dynamic. Some signs that maybe you might notice, these aren't all the things, but some signs that you might notice that your nervous system is still living inside that territory is you find yourself still bracing before you do ordinary things like opening your email, making a decision, expressing your opinion or an emotion, a boundary with someone, because somewhere in your body, it is still waiting for a reaction that is negative, that is chaotic, that is destructive, that is manipulative, that throws it back on you. If somehow you're going to end up being the one that's wrong or the problem. If you are minimizing your own experience, minimizing your pain when someone does something or shows up in a way that is harmful, that is destructive, that is not nice. And your default is to minimize your experience and impact and jump over to making excuses for them. I see this one actually happen a lot. And it's interesting because this one can feel confusing as it isn't necessarily a bad or wrong trait or a wrong way of thinking in the sense of, you know what? I'm going to try and put myself in the other person's shoes. They might be having a bad day or maybe they didn't mean it that way. Like I don't think that in of itself is wrong. What happens though is that we're doing that to bypass your experience, your emotions, your voice, a boundary crossing in some way. When that happens, it slowly starts to erase the shape that you take in that relationship. So if someone asks how things went and you catch yourself saying, it wasn't that bad, when it was, you just erased a little bit more of the shape of you, the definition of you. People will start to not see you and know where you stop and start in a relationship because we slowly start to erase parts of ourselves in that way. Again, very tricky because it feels productive, it feels kind, it feels as it feels kind and productive, but what it's doing is it's minimizing you, putting you in that one down position to make sense of something that was really painful and harmful. When you over explain yourself, oh gosh, like the amount of times that was such a trauma response for me to over explain myself, defend myself, justify your choices. When the person that you're explaining and justifying to isn't really listening, maybe doesn't even really care, or dismisses or uses that against you. When the conversation or the relationship isn't reciprocated, you find yourself still trying to explain, fix, justify where you stand, or even feeling like you have to get permission to make decisions in your life that are absolutely fully within your own control bubble. If you notice that that's happening, even if it's with your children, then you're slowly erasing you. I also see this show up where a lot of times clients move towards people very quickly, connect with people very quickly, get into, like, I had a lady say, I make best friends with the Walmart checkout lady. That right there was a moment that I just flagged, right? Like, okay, that's interesting. Now, if we're seeing a pattern, like you move towards people very quickly, connect very intensely, very quickly because you're hungry for connection, or the opposite, I've seen pull back real quickly because that closeness feels like a threat. Either one of those extremes in either way doesn't indicate a regulated nervous system. It indicates a nervous system that had to learn how to adjust in destructive, chaotic environments. When you still have to measure your instincts, your intuition against what someone else would do or say, you have a thought about anything but an experience or a situation. And your very next thought is, "Oh, but what if I'm wrong? What if I'm the problem?" That again is, I would say, often a trauma response and a dysregulated nervous system. If any of these things, and there's so many more that come to my mind, but for time's sake, if any of these things alone are resonating, just try to stay compassionate with yourself. Try to stay curious here rather than going into any shame, blame, something's wrong with me. No, something's not wrong with you. This is what we want to notice. This is what we want to increase our awareness around, because that's what prolonged exposure inside a destabilizing, destructive, dynamic relationship does to any nervous system. And the good news is that it is absolutely healable, if that's a word. Like, you can heal from and learn how to show up in different roles and create different rules for yourself. I want you to imagine drawing a circle on a piece of paper and then another circle next to it, and then draw a circle around both those circles. Those two small circles are you and the person you're in a relationship with. And the larger circle around both of those smaller circles is the relationship or the couple bubble. This doesn't necessarily have to reflect on a romantic relationship. You can use this with parent relationship, but if you think about you and this other person in that relationship, and you can clearly see those two circles drawn out on your piece of paper, right? Because you're all doing this right now, right? Just imagine, but you can see the circle drawn out for you. In an abusive, destructive, controlling relationship, you start to lose the shape of your bubble inside that couple bubble. Not all at once. It's not often, if really ever, that someone comes in and just takes an eraser and erases that circle and says, poof, you're gone. See, you don't exist. It happens so slowly and so subtly, where it just fades and fades and fades. And gradually, through correction, criticism, and that slow erosion of being told you're not enough, being told who you are often enough that you start to believe it. You stop trusting your own intuition and read on things and on situations, because how many times did I ask, something feels off? Are you sure you're okay? Yes, I'm okay. You know what? Something feels off. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. You get told that enough times, gaslit enough times, then the only explanation is something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm off. So now I'm going to fix me. You edit yourself over and over and over, and you start to edit yourself before you even have a chance to fully feel what you feel. When that happens enough times, then the version of you that you originally drew in that circle starts to get reflected back. That one that is too much, too sensitive, too angry, never satisfied. And that starts to feel like the truth. And when you learn in those relationships to start relying on this other person as your mirror to reflect back who you are and what you are and how you feel and what you should feel, and what you shouldn't, all those things, then I want you to just imagine taking an eraser and just slowly erasing your circle in that relationship. And so when you look inside that larger couple bubble, who do you only see? The other. When we are boundaryless, don't have boundaries, don't hold boundaries. Those boundaries are what define you. When enough power has been taken, enough control has been lost due to those destructive behaviors and dynamics in the relationship, then there needs to be slow erasure in order to stay. But staying is disappearing. I may have mentioned this before, but I had a moment after I left my relationship. I was in my apartment, and I don't remember the specific details, but what I do remember is feeling angry about something, but not reacting and just working through that. And I was walking out my apartment door, and this is what I remember. I was walking out my apartment door, and this whoosh, like of thought and emotion came over me so quickly. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm not an angry person. Like, I think it was something like I had an opportunity to be really angry about something, but I was like, yeah, whatever. I can move past that. And it would just clicked. I'm not an angry person. I'm not. But in my relationship, that's what I was told I was. Somewhere along the way, I accepted that that was true about myself. I had built that into my understanding of me, carried that around like an absolute fact. And then in one moment, that lifted, that shed, it was done. And I noticed myself in a moment where he was wrong and I was wrong about me. That was someone else's story about me. And in that moment, it was like I drew the shape of my circle again, the shape of me again. But it was my hand with the pen, and I was drawing. I'm not an angry person. I I can say no, that doesn't work for me. And that's not me being angry or unreasonable or selfish. It's like I took the pen back and got to start to draw me again. That moment, seeing that so clearly of finding me again in that way felt so true, felt new, felt strange, a little heartbreaking because I'm realizing how much time I lived my life believing that about myself. That's a profound feeling. But that, I think, is what I really want to talk about when we talk about healing from those abusive, destructive patterns. It's not just recovering from what happened to you, it's recovering you, the shape of you, the parts of you that got quiet or disappeared entirely because there wasn't enough room for them and the other person in that couple bubble. Now, for those of you that are still in it, like post separation abuse in it, middle of divorce in it, for those of you that are relating to that, and I know there's many of you, I just want to name something I think that, again, I don't think it's named enough. Leaving the relationship, signing the divorce papers, doing mediation, navigating all of the assets, that does not mean the patterns stop. In fact, for most of you, you're seeing new patterns. That can throw you for a loop. Post separation abuse is real. It shows up in so many ways that can make you feel like you are losing your freaking mind. Litigation that drags way longer than it should, where the court system, the abuse that happens in court system against women still to this day is still impacting you. Co-parenting communication that is still throwing you off balance. The financial pressure that you are probably still facing and abuse still happening in and around. Like the amount of child support that I'm still owed is ridiculous. The messages that are technically civil, but you know this person so well and you know what they are doing and what they are really saying. And you can probably even picture their face, the smug look on their face as they're sending it. All of that is going to feel like that threat in your body. Very, very activated. The performance of reasonableness in front of others or the children, while you and your body are picking up on and sensing something so completely different that is happening covertly, that is happening behind the scenes when no one is looking. I think one of the most disorienting pieces of that is that people around you aren't seeing it. They see the nice guy. They see the guy that's saying the right things. And then you start questioning yourself, questioning your reality. Maybe I am overreacting. Am I really being the difficult one here? You might even have people telling you that. You might have a lawyer telling you that because they are not believing you. That's why I feel so passionate about speaking to this and giving voice to this, because people that haven't experienced it, aren't trained to look for it, don't see it, are missing it. And it can feel very lonely to be in the middle of this. So what I want to encourage you to anchor to is the pattern that is continuing for those of you post separation doesn't mean that you're failing in some way or that you shouldn't have left. It simply, I don't know if simply is the right word because it's so heavy and complicated, but it means that you're dealing with someone who used to control as a relational strategy, and losing formal access to you now does not automatically change the strategy. It just changes the avenue. So your power in this phase is not in controlling what they do. That's often the default that I see clients jump to. even subconsciously, to try and control the other person. And this is where I see not boundaries, but ultimatums start getting checked out there. Your power is building the internal structure that keeps you from being pulled, that push pull, emotionally whiplashed into that cycle every time contact with this person happens. Because a lot of you still have to stay in contact with this person. That just looks like knowing your response window before you respond. Where's my window of tolerance, right? Where am I at? If I am not regulated, then I'm not going to respond, right? That's what you can control. Grounding your body before you open a text message, changing the tone of text for that person rather than all the other people, maybe silencing it. That's what I had to do. I just turned it off. There was none. I would mentally prepare myself to look at my phone. I also now wasn't triggered every time my phone went ding. I knew that that wasn't that person. Or opening your email, right? Now, before you open your email, you move their email inbox to a special folder that you actually have to physically go in and open, that you are emotionally and mentally prepared. That is how you take more control of your nervous system. Having a communication protocol that you don't deviate from, no matter how they respond or not respond. Knowing what your attorney actually needs from you, what you can let go and sit on the side and not get in the weeds around just yet. When you start to build your own inner circle of people, you don't need a lot of them, that do believe you, know you, and trust your story and your experience, get a bigger, fuller picture of what you're going through. I think that really matters as well. So I guess my biggest message here is you're not powerless, even though it feels like it. You are just in the hardest part of the process, but you're not powerless. Now, on the other side of divorce, what does that look like to start healing from these different patterns when divorce is final? But maybe you're still noticing yourself in some of these patterns. Maybe you've gotten into another relationship that felt different, but had similar patterns. I guess I just want to be honest with you here, because I think healing gets described in ways that sound tidy, neat, linear, box checking. That has not been my experience, and it's not the experience that I witness in my clients. I think the actual healing, the actual experience is way messier, way more symbolic to 3 steps back, 2 steps forward an experience. I think that there needs to be some realistic conversation around that, because we can get so hard on ourselves when those patterns that we are starting to identify continue to show up. Healing from abuse patterns isn't a single moment. I see it as a series of small renegotiations your nervous system makes with what real safety is and isn't, because destructive chaos needed to feel safe in order to stay in that relationship. What real safety actually is going to feel like actual chaos and unsafe. Managing that, mitigating that is not a one-step process. If you're putting that expectation on yourself, then you're absolutely going to be frustrated with yourself. So I think sometimes getting your shape back, so to speak, going back to that circle, your bubble, it looks really, really small. It looks like noticing maybe why you're doing what you're doing, why you're like in ordinary things. One of the simple suggestions that I'll give clients is just start with your food. Like, if you wake up in the morning and you make your coffee or make your tea, just stop and look at the brand of coffee or the brand of tea or whatever you're drinking, and just stop and ask yourself why. Name it out loud. Say it out loud. Why did you choose this brand? There's a reason why. Just stop and remind yourself why. Maybe you'll recognize, oh, actually, because they wanted this. Now you get to ask yourself a really beautiful question. Do I want this? Is this something I still want? You get to start getting your shape back, because you're getting your thoughts your feelings, your needs, your choices, your whys back. Why am I eating this sandwich? What do I like about this sandwich? I know this sounds so simple and easy, but it needs to start simple and easy. Do I actually want this? Do I choose it? Did I choose it? Or did someone choose this for me and I've just kept choosing it? Survival is such autopilot mode. So slowing this down and keeping it simple and asking yourself why around some of these simple things and choices that you are making helps you start to get a sense of your shape back. In a controlling relationship, so much of what you did was reactive. So you were constantly calibrating to their mood, to what was safe, to what kept the peace in the relationship. Your choices stopped being your choices. They became survival strategy. What you did, those of you that have done this for so long, years, decades, the gap between what I want and what I do gets very small. That circle gets very faded to almost invisible, to where you disappeared maybe completely. So when you're rebuilding you, the work starts there, not in these big decisions, even jumping into big relationships seriously. Because remember, if you're jumping into a serious relationship really fast, even you're attaching really quickly, that goes back to what I said in the very beginning. That actually might be an indicator that your nervous system isn't regulated. It starts with small ones, small conversations that you pay attention to yourself in. Am I saying yes to something I really want to say no to? Why am I avoiding that topic or that conversation or that person? Why do I feel guilty for resting, for sitting, for relaxing? Why am I apologizing right now? Gosh, how often do I apologize for things that I actually don't need to apologize for? What am I apologizing for? Not to judge any of those answers, just notice, right? It's that first pillar of healing, awareness, self awareness, just to be the one who's watching, who's awaking herself, who's back in the driver's seat, even in these everyday, seemingly mundane things. I think they're really important places to start. That consciousness, that simple act of asking why and even saying it out loud is how you start to find out who you are again when no one is watching. The sandwich matters. So start there. Now, further down the road, one day you realize you made a decision and you didn't spend 3 days second guessing it. Someone raises their voice and your body registers that they're frustrated instead of, I'm in danger. And what did I do wrong? Or you catch yourself having an opinion that's different than someone else's, and you don't automatically edit your opinion to manage their emotions. You'll start to see those things. You'll trust something in your gut that you pick up on a little sooner than you used to. Then that trust turns out to be warranted. You stop explaining yourself so much. You're okay with people not knowing every little detail about you in the checkout stand, or not because you're becoming closed off, right? But because you stopped needing approval before you felt like your experience was real. I don't need someone else to validate my intuition, my experience with that person or that situation. I'm going to believe my body. The clearest sign that I see in my clients that real healing and integration change is underway is they stop outsourcing their reality. They start trusting what they notice, what they feel. So, where does your power lie in all of this for you? It is not changing the other person. It is not getting the acknowledgement that you deserve, the or even getting people to understand where you're coming from or your lived experience or how it's landing in you, and trying so hard to get someone to understand that. It's not waiting for things to become fair, because if y'all haven't figured this out by now, none of this is fair. Your power is in your relationship with you, learning to listen to your body again. Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh my gosh. This is, I cannot speak to this enough and more with more passion. Trust your body, knowing that you have the right to be wrong and then change your mind, but believe your body first. When you build the kind of internal safety that means their chaos can be loud and still not reach the center of you, you know you're getting your power back. You don't have to have all of this figured out perfectly. There's no such thing. You don't have to have, and you don't have to be fully healed before you get to feel some relief of being out of the relationship. You do deserve to know that the work that you're doing, even by just listening to this episode, the work of staying conscious, the work of choosing differently, the work of asking yourself these questions, like the ones that I offered just even today, when you do that, the work is not wasted. You're building something. You're starting to draw again to be seen by you first. So, closing, maybe journal prompt. I haven't given you one of these in a while. Ask yourself, what is one place in my life right now where I am still operating in the old rules, relationship rules and roles? I'll say that again. What is one place in my life right now that I am still operating from old rules and roles? Write it out, see what comes up. Take the next week to notice what shows up. This is how you remind yourself that you are the chooser in your life. How you get to slowly, one step at a time, start creating the shape of you, because you absolutely can. If you're listening to this episode and you're still confused or don't have and feel confident in the language to describe maybe some of the destructive behaviors that you experience in your relationship, then click the link in the show notes, as I have created a video series called Am I in an Abusive Relationship? Whether you are currently navigating your way out or post, this resource can absolutely be beneficial to help you name your reality and your experience in that past relationship. Sometimes it's really hard and challenging to navigate a different way of being when we don't have a name to describe what that past relationship was, what those rules and roles were. So if that's where you feel stuck, I've got you. Head over to the show notes or go to amiewoolsey.com and click on Am I in an Abusive Relationship and watch that free video series today. You don't have to navigate this alone. I've got you. Take care, everybody. Be sure to give a 5-star review, like, and follow the podcast so that we can share with more people around the world navigating a life-saving divorce just like you.